time for the fantasy football girls.
Hi, I'm Talia.
And I'm Dani,
And welcome to Fantasy Football Girls.
Today we're talking about ballers and busts.
Part of the challenge of fantasy is knowing not only who to draft, but who do you start. So we're giving you some guys that you should be playing and taking off your bench.
So, let's start with some ballers. Jared Cook against the Dallas defense. The Dallas defense last season had the worst rush defense in the league. And their pass defense wasn't too far off. I mean, they gave over 280 yards passed against them and 2 touchdowns per game in average. And
Which is great if you're playing anyone on the offense opposite them.
exactly. So they're great to play against. This year, having lost many of their key defensive players has been an issue a little bit.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal for a defense that was already struggling.
Week 1, the San Francisco 49ers came up against the Dallas Cowboys defense. And they have been struggling all preseason.
Yeah.
So it was a big surprise when they went out there and they had over 200 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, what the heck? And then week 2, Jake Locker went in there and we thought he was going to have a great week because of his week 1 performance. I guess he wasn't too great. But you know what? Don't worry about that Dallas defense. They're still okay to play against. They're not like the studs they look like against Jake Locker. I mean,
Yeah, just because they improved, which maybe they have, and that would be great for Tony Romo, it doesn't make them a great defense.
that's why we want you to play against him in week 3.
Yeah.
We have Jared Cook and we have Brian Quick. I think they're both really good. They're the most targeted in St. Louis.
Yep. Brian Quick has had at least 7 catches in each game, so he's a good guy to stash in PPR.
Yeah, he's great. And we have Sean Hill at quarterback, maybe, or Austin Davis, who both have been pretty good as, game managers.
Yeah.
But their playmaking ability, we'll see what happens. But managing, they're good. Who doesn't want to see Jared Cook have his first touchdown of the season? Vernon Davis had a touchdown, and so did Delaney Walker.
Yeah.
So, against the Dallas defense. And guess what? It's going to happen this week. Jared Cook's going to have his first touchdown. I guarantee it.
Wow, guarantee it.
I think so, because in the last 2 weeks, they've allowed tight ends to score more than 36 points in the last 2 games. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So I think
I'll take 36 fantasy points from my tight ends in
Hell
2 games.
yeah.
Sure. So hopefully this week it'll be with Jared Cook. He's a baller.
he is a baller. Shot caller.
Antonio Gates, Keenan Allen, and sleeper Malcolm Floyd versus the Bills' passing defense. Antonio Gates, he
Baller.
is a baller. He's been having some great games this last week in particular, but even in week 1 he was looking good, proving all these people who've been saying he's 34, he's an old man, he's going to break down. This is the year of Ladarius Green. Not yet. In a preseason conversation that I had with ESPN analyst Christopher Harris, I was voicing my concern about all the hype over Ladarius Green, because it was as if everybody forgot the chemistry that Phillip Rivers and Antonio Gates have. And in the preseason, you saw that he was still throwing to Gates. So I think that the concern over Green was warranted, clearly. It's not going to be his year until or unless Antonio Gates gets injured. This week, they're going up against the Bills' defense. And look, the Bills have a pretty good pass defense. They only allowed 204 net passing yards per game on average last year. But don't let that stat fool you. Part of the reason that those numbers are so low is because teams are able to exploit them in the run game, because their run defense is not so great. So people haven't really had to throw too much against them. They've been able to penetrate through the run game. The Bills are good at getting interceptions, so you do want to look out for that. The real stat to pay attention to is the fact that they've allowed 28 passing touchdowns last season. So we're going to see some passing touchdowns in this next game. And who is Phillip Rivers throwing his touchdown passes to?
Antonio Gates.
Antonio Gates. So get him off your bench
Swing.
and play him.
3 touchdowns last week.
3 touchdowns last week. And I'm seeing at least one coming up now. There's also a chance, of course, for Keenan Allen to turn a clutch catch into a touchdown.
Also my bench.
And another benched player of yours, Malcolm Floyd.
Also another one, yes.
He's more of a sleeper as their wide receiver 2 option. But he caught a touchdown in week 1, and I think he could do it again. The Bills are just handing out passing touchdowns, so you should probably take them up on it.
Yeah, I think. All right, let's move on off of the tight ends onto the wide receivers with DeAndre Hopkins and Andre Johnson, my man on 2 fantasy football teams and 1 of yours.
Yes, he is, and I'm hoping that this will be his big blow-up week.
Yeah, because last week wasn't so great, but guess what? This week they had the Giants defense. They gave up 341 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions to the Lions. In week 2, they were up against the Cardinals' backup, Drew Stanton, and he did pretty well. You know, he had no forced fumbles against him, no interceptions, and they won 25-14, which is really great. And this week, they have the bearded wonder, Ryan Fitzpatrick. You know, he has that shaggy beard, and he's no Matt Stafford, but he can fare well, you know, having Andre Johnson and DeAndre Hopkins catching his balls.
He's definitely more experienced and better than Drew Stanton, so if Stanton can have a high winning game over the Giants, I'm pretty sure that the Texans can too.
Exactly.
So
DeAndre Hopkins and Andre Johnson, we're pulling your cards this week. You guys are the ballers of the week.
It's the fantasy football girls here to hook y'all. 2 hotties on some made you look. They shoot just to rock your world. Time for the fantasy football girls.